Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. Well, we're rocking this morning. Did we get a credit for that music? I don't recognize that. David Bowie. David Bowie. All right, okay. This show is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. I'm your host, Jeff D. My co-host is Martin Wagner, and our guest today is Rohan Wynar.
Thanks again for inviting me.
Do you have an actual term for what you are? You were a graduate student?
Well, I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Texas, and I should be in my last 6 months of stay here, in not only in the university but perhaps in Austin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Get to go off and do physics elsewhere?
You know, well, everybody's got to graduate, and my time's coming.
We are live September 3, 2000 CE. The ACA has weekly meetings Sunday mornings at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop, 307 West 5th Street at 10:30 a.m. right after this show, except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. at the Longhorn Room in Furr's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. Since today is the first Sunday of September, this is a lecture day. The speaker will be Dr. Rory Coker of the Department of Physics, University of Texas at Austin. He's going to be giving a talk called Fake Science, Anti-Science, and Ignored Science. Dr. Coker has taught, among other things, a class called Pseudoscience, which explains pseudoscience to non-science majors. On October the 1st, the speaker will be Ray Mooney of UT's Department of Computer Science talking about artificial intelligence, minds without mysticism.
Impossible. Impossible.
ACA board meetings take place at noon, right after our regular meeting on the second Sunday of every month. The next board meeting will be September 10. If you shop at Randall's, and if you want, you can give them our group number, which is 5158, and have 1% of your purchase donated to the Atheist Community of Austin. The Godless Gamers meet every Monday night at 7:30 at the home of Vic Farrow. For more information, you can call our voicemail at 371-2911 or visit our website, www.atheist-community.org. And again, this show apparently can still be seen intermittently on spring.net, depending on what's happening over there. It's always worth a try. Let me go through announcements.
Maybe I should mention something about Dr. Coker's talk today.
Oh, please.
Dr. Coker usually has a very entertaining presentation about pseudoscience, and the thing that's important is just to understand what the talk is about. Frequently during the show, we're usually talking about religion. But pseudoscience is actually a kind of religion that doesn't involve gods and deities often, all the time. It's another kind of sort of bizarre religious thing that people do that is just as wrong as regular religion. And it's sort of a false understanding of how science works and being led astray by science's most basic errors. And it should be a really good talk. It should be for people who aren't familiar with the notion of pseudoscience, but are familiar with the notion of, say, religious criticism.
Right.
I think they would really enjoy showing up.
We don't often talk about pseudoscience, but we did last week because the name Deepak Chopra came up.
Oh yeah, it's a classic pseudoscience figure.
And that's why we've invited you to be with us here today.
Just during the week.
Yeah.
On TV, and
but more about that later. Let me go quick through our group announcements. We don't hate you, we just think you're wrong buttons. Like these ones here. If you see me or Martin on the street, you can stop and tell us you watched the show, and we will offer you a button if we've got them on us. I actually got recognized at a local Chinese restaurant, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the name, but
maybe play it safe and don't.
But they were nice folks. Maybe they prefer that we didn't advertise an atheist seat there. But anyway, in case you're watching, folks, thanks for watching. The American Atheists is running a Contact Joe campaign. You can go to their website, and there is a prepared letter for Joe Lieberman reacting to his statements last week about there not being any freedom from religion.
God told me to say that. No, he didn't.
Yeah, Lieberman's a fanatic. There's no doubt about
I
it.
did that.
You did what? You did fill out the thing?
The
Me too.
letter, I kind of, I added a few paragraphs or two, mentioning things that I didn't think they mentioned. Sent it off, got an auto response back, it was a form letter. So
Right.
they're probably going in a big file that he'll never see in his hand.
No, it's really disturbing that the Democratic Party is being infiltrated by the same fanaticism as the Republican Party, and I always sort of hoped that the Democrats would somehow escape that, but it's not the case.
Yeah, and what's ironic is Dick Cheney apparently did this.
He's clean.
He spoke before the Fellowship of Christian Homophobes. Oops, I'm sorry. And went over like a lead balloon. Apparently.
Really?
It was an absolute disaster.
Of course not. He never talks about religion.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney's very clean on the subject. Lieberman, it's funny because many people actually think that Jews are somehow better than the rest of everybody. Now, I know, for example, Paul Wilson, who's a frequent guest in the show, is of that opinion in some sense that they at least understand the Bible in its cultural context. Yeah, I know it says all that wacky stuff about, killing your daughter if she gets, she marries the wrong guy and all this stuff. But that was then, this is now. But still, there is a strong element of fanaticism in all religions, and Jews are just the same. They take out ads in the New York Times saying that if you if you use your menorah correctly this Hanukkah, God will end all of this nonsense about the world and bring us into the post-Messianic age. And you see full-page ads like that from Jews in the New York Times. So they're just as wacky as the Christians are.
Well,
and Lieberman is showing that. I mean, he's going out there and he's just demonstrating it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just, it's plain politics too. It's just,
Well, what amazes me about that is here we have the Republicans, right, who took their right-wing religious extremists and shunted them off into a back room during their convention,
which was a good idea
because they know those guys are giving them a bad image, right? And so they hide them, right? And they're doing this stealth candidacy, right? Because you know that the George Bush is really in their pocket, but they hide their religious fanatics because they're bad for business. And what do the Democrats do? The Democrats whip out some of their own guys. Look what the Republicans are doing. Even if, as I hope, the Democrats are really only posturing to try to beat the Republicans.
Right.
Even if they're just doing that, they should notice what has not worked for the Republicans and not make the same mistake themselves.
Yes.
Bow your head, please. Lord, please forgive these senators for getting all in your business.
All right, let's go on with the announcements. If you want to be involved in that American Atheists Contact Joe campaign, the website is www.atheists.org/action/Lieberman.html. Again, on the subject of American Atheists, since they're doing a lot this month, on September 10th, that's next weekend, American Atheists will be hosting the Cowtown Regional Atheist Meet in Fort Worth, Texas.
Cram.
This is in the home turf of the Metroplex Atheists. Those are the guys that were involved in the book covers, which was kind of a neat thing. The website for more information on that is www.atheists.org/ram/txram.html.
I can't help but mentioning that I will be speaking at that event.
You can't help but mention that, can you?
I have to mention that. And also the topic I'll be talking on is medical quackery and the religious aspects of medical quackery and alternative medicine and why the parallels are so obvious and often they're just blatant ripoffs. And the other talk will be very similar to Dr. Coker's talk today, which is a general presentation of the nature of pseudoscience and the common errors that are made by both religious fanatics and people who are interested in pseudoscience.
Cool. Amanda wants to go up to that thing, but it's on a weekend, and I'd probably have to miss the show, and it's a long, hot drive.
It's a drive.
So,
but
anyway.
You can stop at the Waco Church, the rebuilt Waco Church, on your way up there, and give David Koresh your regards, or what's left of him.
All right. Along the lines of the topic of education, The Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal and the Council for Secular Humanism will be offering a class entitled The Scientific Examination of the Bible, Paul, Jesus, and the Facts at the Omni Austin Hotel South Park, September 22 to 24 of this year. There is an admission price and a banquet that also costs money. You would have to go to www.scicop.org for more information. AIDS Walk Austin will take place on October 15. That will begin in Waterloo Park. For more information, call 452-WALK or visit aidswalkaustin.org.
And we're going to be doing that, right?
Yes, we are organizing a group to participate in the AIDS Walk.
Because we know that AIDS is not a blight sent by God to kill homosexuals for being dirty, bad people.
You know what else we know? We also know that it's not imaginary. That it's not a like trumped up fake disease.
Conspiracy.
No.
That's
we
actually
we do not agree with the AIDS deniers.
Yeah, it's
That's right.
HIV denier.
Who would claim that it was either caused by AZT, the medicine designed to cure AIDS, or that it's caused by taking amyl nitrate poppers. I am not joking. I couldn't make that up.
All right. Any instances of slurs, defamation, or discrimination against atheists or other non-believers in the U.S. media can now be reported to the National Atheist Ombuds by emailing ombuds@atheism.org. This is essentially an anti-defamation group for atheists. Please remember to include as many details as possible and a news source where applicable. I hope that they got just a bagload of email about Lieberman.
Yeah.
Incidents will be reported to participating national and local non-theist organizations who have agreed to distribute press releases regarding the reported subject matter. And the last thing I want to talk about is a thumbs up and good work, guys, to the membership drive committee of the ACA.
Yeah.
We have been getting a lot of new members, quite a handful every week.
Maybe we should beautify the leaders of that group.
Now we'll do your news story in a second. Don't be trying to segue into it now. What was I saying? So, so good work, guys. Keep it up, because the ACA is growing by leaps and bounds.
We're running out of table space at the bagel shop.
All right. Now, one last thing before we go on to news. I have another failed Rapture prediction to report. I mentioned that this one last week. September 2 sees the end of Jewish year 5760. Jerry Greeno seemed to think that this would be the absolute final year of the present age. This conclusion was based on a number of less than impressive factors, including the wonderful Bible codes matrix that Jerry found. Well, in fact, September 2nd, that was yesterday, was not the end of the present age, and so we mark him failed.
Perhaps Jerry did something to avert it. Maybe he saved us. You know,
I have no information on that.
It would have been the end, but because he figured it out, we got an extension.
That's sort of like the the Incas who would like cut people's hearts out because if they didn't, the sun wouldn't rise the next day.
That's right.
There you see it.
All right. So anyway, that's enough Rapture report for today. Let's go on to news.
Okay. All right, good morning, boys and girls. Time for some news. And starting off with this great prayer rally that didn't really happen when it was supposed to. In case you haven't been following, No Pray, No Play, which is a group of Christians who are just a bit miffed that about the recent Supreme Court ruling about no state-sponsored prayer at school.
They are stamping their little feet, aren't they?
A bit miffed at the U.S. Constitution.
What they wanted to do was say, well, we're not going to take this line down. We're going to have a spontaneous, organized outburst of the Lord's Prayer at the next Santa Fe football game. We're just going to pack the stands with good, loyal Christians, and we're all going to burst out in the prayer and drown everyone out with the Lord's Prayer, and that'll show those nasty liberal commie pinkos, scumbags in the Supreme Court.
Well, I prayed in the streets. I prayed in the saloons. I prayed in the toilets. It don't matter where, so long as he gets that prayer.
Oh, okay. And my mic was all messed up. Sorry, folks. Hopefully that's better. Okay. Well, here's what really happened. A statewide prayer protest of a U.S. Supreme Court ban on school-sanctioned pregame prayer fell flat on the high school football field that launched the debate. After the national anthem ended at Santa Fe High School's home opener last Friday, about 200 of the crowd of 4,500 recited the Lord's Prayer. Protest organizers had boldly predicted that 10,000 Christians would converge at the game. Those who did pray were drowned out by the loudspeakers, which the High Court said could not be used to broadcast a prayer, when the announcer introduced the visiting team. So, a bummer.
Interesting couple of points. First of all, that's the stories from the Associated Press. They can't know precisely how many people prayed, but assuming that they were off by a factor of 2, right? If it was 400 people praying in the stands, that's still not 10,000.
No.
In fact, it's less than 1/10 of the entire audience of 4,500.
Everyone in the stands, right?
200 is less than 5%.
Yeah.
But if they were off by 2, if it was 400 people praying, that's still less than 1 in 10, which of course is roughly the number of atheists in the general population. And they do know how many people showed up in toto, right, in the stands. 4,500 is not 10,000 like they claimed that they were going to have. So it's just a big flat bust any way you look at it.
Yeah.
Well, it's an indication that what I learned from this is 2 things. One is that a lot of I say reasonable Christians understand that this is actually a good decision by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
This is actually the way it should be.
Yeah, the majority of mainstream Christians
Right.
are completely down with
And
the
so-
idea that we don't want to ram up. And if you go to the nopraynoplay.com website, where they had all this, or .org or whatever it was, where
What's
they
that
had I'm sure you read their big, long statement to non-Christians, where they started out by going sort of out of their way to explain how tolerant they are, and how understanding they are, and how sympathetic to non-Christians they are. But this is something that they just had to do. And so if you don't like to hear prayers, you might want to show up late to the game. So it's very clear, okay, fine. If maybe they don't want to impose their beliefs on non-Christians, but it's very clear that what the stated intent was to create an atmosphere in which any non-Christian at that football game would definitely feel unwanted and unwelcome, and as if they had no place there. That was their intent.
So I was going to
So
that was
this
bringing up
whole
to the
hypocritical thing.
I was going to wonder, that's the sort of the second point that I was thinking about regarding this issue, which was, isn't this the right way to do it? Don't you think that if Christians do want to pray at these football games, they stand up and pray?
Yeah.
And that's absolutely okay.
Yeah,
in
they
a sense.
can do whatever they
it's
want.
pathetic, it's
It
sad,
is. In
but
fact,
it's
okay. This article makes a point that the ACLU is 100% behind this current strategy, right? Because it's private citizens privately organizing their own thing to do, right? To express their free speech. The one thing that they're watching very carefully, though, is that the local school cannot be doing things like delaying the announcements, the normally scheduled announcements for the game until after the prayer is over, because that would be giving special consideration to the Christians, right? That would be giving special consideration to this expression of religiosity. They can't do that, and according to the story, they didn't.
They didn't do that.
The announcement of the visiting team kicked in somewhere in the immediately or somewhere in the middle of the prayer. So
It's so much easier this way. It's just so simple. You have your game, you play your game, and God picks the winning team, and that team wins, and
Not.
No. They've never pretended that their prayer was to affect the outcome of the game.
Of course, that's true.
Because they can't.
Of course, the students on this field who are praying,
They have claimed that they pray for the sake of preventing injuries, which of course you'd think that their omnipotent, omniscient God could do anyway.
Yeah.
If he didn't want there to be injuries, he would just make them not happen.
Right.
And if they're worried
If you don't
that their
play,
God
I will
can't handle
injure
it, what they could be doing is they could be protesting football in general, saying it's dangerous if they're against they're against injuries.
There's no logic to
they're
the
not
pregame
against
prayer.
injuries. They are in favor of getting everybody else to be Christians.
Yeah, so it's clearly make the non-Christians feel unwelcome. It couldn't possibly be any plainer.
Well, it makes no sense otherwise, right?
Oh yeah. So it's right. Anyway, and a bit of science news. Scientists will probe the mysteries of the mind and explain the wonders of biotechnology next week during what is billed as Britain's biggest science and arts festival since the Great Exhibition of 1851.
Oh my goodness.
The annual British Association for the Advancement of Science Conference will kick off the 24-day event, which will include scientific research, mass participation experiments, debates, concerts, and workshops. To mark the millennium, the BA's yearly conference is being held in London for only the second time in its 164-year history. It will be fused with the arts to show how scientists and artists will shape the future. Quote, the Lord Oxborough, the rector of Imperial College London, and that's just so British sounding, Lord Oxborough, described the Creating Sparks Festival, that's what they're calling it, from September 6th to the 30th, as the largest since millions of visitors flocked to the British capital for the Great Exhibition 150 years ago. Quote, should I do the voice? No, I won't do the voice.
Don't do the voice.
All right. Well, just, Lord Oxborough, got to do the voice. But I won't. The message of this festival is that in no time in civilization has the message of this festival is that at no time in civilization has civilization been more dependent on science than it is today, he told a news conference. Sounds pretty neat.
I guess if there can be Christian rock, there can be science rock.
The new hip
Thomas
face
Dolby.
of science.
Yeah.
We don't have Thomas Dolby by any chance over there in the audio room, do you?
I will bring him next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't want to be blinding people with science. We want to be enlightening people with science.
Of course we
Okay. That's your news. I understand you've got
I'd love to do the thing about the Pope's skull, but just because it's funny. But
the Pope. Go ahead, do the thing of the Pope. Do it quick.
okay, it's just thieves. This is right out of some Inspector Clouseau movie. Have stolen the skull of a 14th century Spanish Pope from a ruined palace in a remote town in Spain and are now reported to be demanding a ransom. The skull of Benedicto XIII was stolen in April from a boarded-up palace that once belonged to a local count. The mayor of the nearby town of Ilueca, the birthplace of the Pope, has received, this is the weird part, 2 scrawled ransom notes ordering him to bring $5,400.
So that's probably a conversion from lira or something,
Is this guy
okay?
just trying to make his car payment? I mean, if you've stolen the skull of the Pope, I mean, go for it. I mean, $100,000 at
Popes
least.
are a dime a dozen. Go on.
Anyway. But
He
it's
wasn't
just
even a beatified pope like my pope is going to be in a few minutes.
But anyway,
So
it's
nicely
just sort of,
segues into what you have to talk about.
Yeah, but the newspaper report said Mayor went to the rendezvous accompanied by at least 15 police. The thieves failed to appear, and the mayor now fears they have carried out their threat to, quote, throw the skull in the river. It's just bizarre, but I just thought it was very amusing.
Speaking of popes,
Yeah.
There's another pope in the news today, besides our own pope, who is still alive and kicking. This pope who died in the year 1864. But he was beatified, and occasionally the Catholic Church creates saints. And the process of creating the saints goes through several steps. One step is called Beautification, where the Church formally acknowledges some person as holy enough for consideration to sainthood, and then there's this process called canonization, where they become a saint. And there's certain rules, and miracles must be attributed of sufficient veracity, and the Pope sends a little council of scientists and doctors to interview people who claim to have been terminally ill and then prayed and got better, and they decide that this was truly a miracle. And so beatification and sainthood is a very important thing, and you cannot become a saint until you're beatified. But a former pope will be beatified tomorrow.
Today.
Today. And this one is particularly interesting for 2 reasons. I'll read the quick bio here. One of 2 former popes who will be beatified on 3 September by the present pope will be Pius IX, who reigned from 1846 to 1878. Pius was the last Pope King to rule as the temporal monarch over central Italy, and was notorious for his ultra-conservatism, anti-Semitism, and intolerance. This is the same anti-Semitism that has cropped its ugly head up in discussions of the pontificate actions during the Holocaust. Interesting, this was the last gasp for theocratic Catholicism. And he, being the last theocratic pope, is coincidentally the one who's going to be beatified. Now, one of the favorite shows of Pius IX for his visitors was done by a small Jewish boy named Edgardo. This is a very infamous story. He was a Jewish boy kidnapped by the Papal police and later grown by the Pope like his obedient son. The Pope ordered Edgardo to lick the floor with his tongue during drawing a cross with his tongue in front of visitors. And this would be to affirm the boy's faith in the Catholic Church. But how did this boy become a close associate of the Pope? Well, what happened was Edgardo was a Jewish boy who was very sick, but he was secretly baptized without the knowledge of his parents by a servant when the boy was gravely ill. So the servant saw a boy who was gravely ill, really thought that the only way this kid was going to get better was if he was a Catholic, because only God helps Catholics and God doesn't bother with Jews. So she baptized the boy in secret. But there was a law, and the law said that children who are baptized cannot be raised by Jewish parents, even if they were baptized against the will of their parents or secretly. So the Pope basically had this child removed from his home. Even the head of the police squad was in tears witnessing the mother's helpless pleas. Edgardo's parents mobilized the international protest, and that's why this event is very well known, relatively well documented. Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria, Napoleon III urged Pius to return Edgardo to his family. But Pope Pius found a special interest in the boy and, defying world opinion, adopted him as his own personal ward. This story was chronicled very carefully in 1997 in a book called The Kidnapping of Edgardo Montera. And the boy ultimately grew up, became a Catholic priest, which is no surprise, and he died at the age of 88. But the other interesting thing about this particular pope, aside from this absolute moral evacuation of his brain, right? Other than that, he also had the guts to create and to really drive home the notion of papal infallibility. And his council, the Vatican Council, defined the doctrine of papal infallibility, which essentially says that what the Pope says, quote unquote, ex cathedra, is impossible to be errant. Ex cathedra means that when he is sitting in the chair, acting in his papal authority as the supreme apostolic authority to all Catholics, when he is in that position, anything he says is true. However, when the Pope says stuff like, no, the sun goes around the earth doesn't go around the sun, and when he says stuff like, no, there is no such thing as celestial matter, and if there was, it wouldn't be the same as terrestrial matter, and there's no possibility of other planets and all that stuff, he wasn't saying that ex cathedra, so that stuff is okay. So the doctrine of papal infallibility is actually quite subtle, and you have to really thread the needle so that all of the crazy stuff popes have said gets put on one side of the line, and all of the stuff that popes that we kind of like gets put on the other side of the line. And he was the father of papal infallibility.
I think you should read that quote from him.
I am the church, I am the tradition, was one of his favorite phrases. And that's true. That's true. The Pope is the church, the Pope is the tradition. And this doctrine of papal infallibility makes it sure.
So after getting his people to declare him infallible when he's sitting on his throne, and after getting this little boy to lick a cross on the floor
as a demonstration
of his faith, after stealing this boy from his parents against his will, against the parents' will,
based on some twisted theological,
they're going to set this nitwit on the path toward
Beautification.
Towards sainthood.
That's right. Now the question, which is this, clearly there's an explanation here which I'm interested in getting from the official Vatican website, and I will find that out and deliver it to you to deliver to the crowd next week.
What their justification
there must be a justification. Obviously, we only have the bad side of the story. And there must be something really good that when you put it up next to this, just erases.
Is there some
erases the
involved,
kidnap.
maybe?
What's that?
Maybe there's a miracle involved.
I'm sure there is. There has to
they
be.
think that, forcibly, saving that boy's soul by turning him from a nasty Jew to a Catholic was the good thing. I mean, maybe that's what they
I'd
think.
find
Like,
it
what?
very,
What's wrong
very
with
hard to believe that the contemporary Vatican would take a position even close to that.
I understand that there is a big conflict brewing in the Catholic Church between the liberal and the conservative ends of it. Trying to make sure that each side's trying to make sure that one of theirs gets made the next pope, because their current pope is
it's
on his last legs.
The current pope has done a marvelous job of consolidating his doctrinal control over the church. He's placed a lot of significant bishops, and I don't object to him for this. This is what he should do. He has really taken care of that liberal element. He has disciplined the American Catholic Church very strongly, and he's done a very good job of making sure everybody in line is really marching to the same music. And
I may be wrong.
for example, you will not see any more discussions for maybe another century over the notion of priests getting married. Maybe not the century, but enough for several generations of bishops are going to have to be burned through before you get that
I
question.
might be wrong about this, but I thought I read somewhere that they have like his successor in line, or is there still the big? Are they still duking it out?
In principle, they
have a guy.
Well,
in the back.
who knows? Who knows
Yeah,
what?
we have any
Who knows
Catholics
what?
out there who want to straighten us out on this?
Yeah.
We only have.
Who knows what the
outsiders
Cardinals
view of
really
what's
do?
going
But
on.
in principle, they don't.
We have some callers that I think we should go to.
Yes.
Are we set?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let us go to Matthew.
Hello.
Matthew? Okay, we are not. There we go.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey,
What
you
can we
guys
do for
got a
you?
really good show.
Thanks.
It's one of the only shows I watch on Access.
Okay.
It's definitely one of the better ones.
Oh, stop.
No, it's true. I think especially in a town like Austin, where you've got a lot of people who have like just moved away from home. We've got a huge university, and they're trying to work all these things out, in their heads. It's just a really good show.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Speaking of that, the first day of campus, as usual, the Gideons were at every possible entrance point onto the campus.
Handing out Bibles?
Handing out their little green Bibles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And although they are among the most unobtrusive of tract handers, and they are one of the most older and saintly organizations in this field, and they only come one day and then they go away. They were there, inviting all the new students.
Yeah. Do you guys ever think that a lot of this is some people just can't accept a difficult view of reality because it's just too harsh, and so therefore they create. If they can get themselves to believe in it, then they're happier believing some type of a fantasy.
I'm not willing to concede that a rationalist, materialist view of reality is too harsh.
Really?
But it certainly is harsher than, this is all just a prelude to an eternity where, laying on fluffy clouds.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I definitely think that there is a competition there, an emotional competition for people's beliefs. And I think a lot of people get suckered into those belief systems because they're so attractive. But that has nothing to do with whether they're true or not.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks for calling.
It's very much like evaluating and this is something that Dr. Coker will certainly be touching on today. I can't speak for him, but it is evaluating scientific ideas based on what you want to be true. And this is exactly what pseudoscience is. And that's why there's so much overlap between religion and pseudoscience, is because of this very point. People have an axe to grind or an emotional leaning that they have to satisfy, and they will use that to make predictions about the real physical world.
Yeah.
And these AIDS heretics that I was talking about a little bit earlier are the same way. Looking at the face of AIDS is so horrible that one thing you can do is you can just deny the science because you just don't want it to be true.
Yeah. We had a lot of discussion about this on last week's show.
Oh, that's too bad.
Well, that's exactly why we invited you in. Some names came up, and I mentioned these names to you. Do you think you can fill us in a little bit more on the three people we talked about last week? Deepak Chopra.
Deepak Chopra, very famous, yes. Who else?
Candice Pert, her name came up, though we had a caller actually on
Neuroscientist.
that show who gave us a little more background on her, and Brian Josephson.
Well, it's certainly easy to start with Deepak Chopra. He is a classic fraud of the most notorious form who has made himself so popular that it's absolutely impossible to convince people of the actual level of his charlatanism. But basically, he was a man who started in the Transcendental Meditation Organization. And this is the organization run by the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, which was in itself a huge, fraudulent meditation cult that made all kinds of outlandish claims based on meditation and health, meditation and levitation, meditation and supernatural powers. And this organization ultimately led to the Natural Law Party, whose prime mover has now become the anti-reform candidate. His name is Hagelin, who is the non-Buchanan reform candidate.
Oh no, really?
Yep.
Wow.
He's a TM nitwit.
That's right.
Oh, man.
yeah. And no, Hagelin.
Don't touch that
Hagelin
dial,
is the
or
king
my
of
friend Swami
the king of
Vito
TM.
Ananda will come and break your aura.
His particular claim is that all the Natural Law Party's essential claim, and I say this by way of background for the kind of organization Chopra was involved in, their essential claim is that you can solve the world's problem by getting enough people to meditate, meaning sit still and just sort of do the inward thing. And their meditational vibrations will go out and fix the community. That is their essential core political answer to human problem.
President worth voting for?
Well, Hagelin certainly isn't. I would
If there is,
seriously.
we can't say who it is on this show.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would vote for Buchanan long before I'd vote for Hagelin, and that means
Wow.
Hagelin must be a nightmare. Because Buchanan has his own pseudoscience problems. But the point is Deepak Chopra was brought into this organization to be the guy to run sort of the medical line, the Ayurvedic. That's the name of Indian traditional medicine. It's called Ayurveda. And he was going to run this line and create this line. And something happened, the details of which I've once knew but have forgotten. They're not interesting, but he just split. He just split, wrote his own books. I read one of his books when I was in high school, one of his very first books. And he just started going off on this very elaborate, twisted combination of mystic Hinduism, quantum mechanics, and medicine. Because he is a medical doctor, although he's kind of sort of dropped out from technical licensed practice, per se. Basically, all of his notions are complete frauds. I mean, the kinds of Ayurvedic medicine things he's interested in. He's talking about immortality as he slowly grows older, like everybody else does. He's convinced that he's been noted for saying things like, happy molecules make happy people.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, this is a very famous idea of his. And there's a whole host of litany of, for example, the fraudulent practice of drinking your own urine as a therapeutic.
He backs that?
This is part of
man.
traditional Ayurvedic medicine, which he's not quite willing to shy away from. And
Is he willing to do it himself?
perhaps he is. I mean, this isn't too unusual, and it's actually not too dangerous, really. But it's not particularly. It's not particularly beneficial. And but the thing is what he's managed to do.
You are a master of understatement.
What he's managed to do is he's managed to present a combination of.
Arlo, that's not necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, he's managed to present a unique combination of medical authoritarianism, because he's a medical doctor, of some kind of spiritual understanding, because he is, after all, Indian, and we know that all those Indians are very spiritual people, because that's the way Americans view Indians. Hindus in this country are viewed as some kind of, these are the people that when you climb mountaintops and get to the top, you don't see a guy from Brooklyn there, you see a guy from India there, right? And he's managed to mix that with a lot of cotton candy language and produce a lexicon of spirituality, which is now the lexicon of white American spirituality in our country, and it's complete fraud.
Yeah, I channel surfed and saw him on a talk show just this last week, and he was just saying stuff that I found repulsive, but the audience was oohing and eyeing over stuff like, death is magical, death is a new stage, and it's like what?
And it's again, but his simple. Let me just fast example of his simplicity. He'll break down the body into there's 3 different body types, and anybody can be classified in one of these 3 different body types. And from that, he can give you regimens for nutrition and for health, and it's very.
I see that we have Joe Zamecki on the line. Joe is well, let me get him on the line. He can tell us all about himself.
Yes, sir.
Joe.
Good morning.
Hi, Joe.
Can y'all hear me okay this time?
Yeah.
Yeah, very great.
Hey, you going to be in Fort Worth next week?
Right, that's one reason why I was calling today.
You are?
Yes, I understand Rohan Wynar is on the show today.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. He'll
Rohan was
also
just
be
talking.
here at the Regional Atheist Meet in Fort Worth, Texas.
Mm-hmm. We announced that at the start of the show.
Oh, good, great, yeah.
Yeah, we cover your group's activities.
Sure.
For those of you who are recent viewers, Joe used to be the co-host of this show. and has gone off to work with American Atheists in New Jersey, and still calls us occasionally with cool news. So what's up, Joe?
Well, I haven't cut off all my contacts with my loved ones yet, as do the cultists. So, but I just want to say, it didn't cover this part. It's going to be at the Renaissance Worthington Hotel in Sundance Square in Fort Worth, which is supposed to be very nice. Of course, Rohan Wynar will be there, but Ellen Johnson and Dick Hogan, the Texas State Director for American Atheists, will be there. And then Fred Whitehead, who was recently terminated from the University of Kansas there as professor for his, for his attitude basically on atheism and skepticism. And then Wendell Turley, an attorney, will speak out on protecting the children against the unreasonable reach of religious expression. And he had a case against the Catholic Church involving sexual abuse, or several cases. And the Hare Krishnas also, who are into that sort of thing apparently also. And then P.A. Humphrey will talk about the Tarrant County Sheriff in Texas and his God Pod, which is in a jail. And it's the sheriff has instituted a Christian ministry for the jails and pays for it with public funds. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there are a lot of fanatical sheriffs out there, aren't there?
Also, about the Santa Fe football game on Friday, I understand that they couldn't get in their prayers in edgewise.
We read a report from the Associated Press which said that of the 4,500 people in the stands, they guesstimated about 200 of them tried to pray in unison and were drowned out by the loudspeaker as the announcer introduced the visiting team.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Well, you know, with their attitude, I'm reading from the Associated Press article here, and one person's attitude was, well, if we had been more organized about it, we would have been able to shout out the announcer with the PA system.
Well, this
so that's their objective now.
This is what amazes me, Joe. Where David Newsom, the No Pray No Play spokesman, where he says, we were trying to get everybody on the same line. We didn't come here and say we were going to orchestrate this thing 1, 2, 3 like they're doing out there in the field with the band. Wrong.
That's exactly what they said.
If you go to noplay.com, that's exactly what he was saying they were wanting to do. Exactly. So that's just a blatant lie.
They said they were going to bring in 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
apparently there were no 10,000 people there.
Yeah, the 10,000 people have better things to do. You know.
It just goes to show, you know, some of the loudest voices of fundamentalism really are representing a very small minority. They just get a lot of press.
Yeah.
And in some sense, we may overdose our time on them themselves just because they're so loud. You know, do they deserve to have such a loud response?
Well, no, I think they do, because I think it's from those loudmouth little minorities that large movements do tend to grow. And so if we don't speak up when they're a minority of loudmouth nitwits,
of course,
then eventually it's going to be a large group of loudmouth nitwits.
Which is the exact same logic I've always used to challenge the Church of Scientology at every turn, despite their small size.
That's right.
The Nazi Party in the 20s was very small.
What else, Joe?
Yeah, I just had one more quote from this article. They quoted a resident of Santa Fe named Jackie Nelson, and she said, quote, "The loudspeakers are paid for with our tax dollars, so we should be able to use them as we wish." Hang on, it gets better. If other groups want to pray that way, let them put their Buddhas or their wooden statues up there and pray to their dead gods, unquote. Now, what's the attitude there? Is that, I don't know, is that sharing Christian love?
Well, it certainly isn't the tolerance and sympathy that they claim to have for people of other faiths on their website.
But that would be another solution to the problem, right? Would just be to give every group a forum for expression, right? Yeah. But then you're going to have Satanists up there, and you're going to have Wiccans up there, and you're going to have New Age nitwits up there. Every group will make a big public display, and if that's what you want, if that's what this lady wants to turn football games into, is a menagerie of different religious expressions, that would be a fair way to do it, but it's not a terribly good idea.
Yeah, well, clearly most people were there to watch football. So this,
well,
otherwise just want to cancel the game and have all 2,000 of the world's religions ever.
I didn't see any report in here of what team won.
Santa Fe won.
Did they win?
Yeah.
Okay, Santa Fe won.
Good
for them.
An interesting thing is that one interesting note is that at the University of Texas, the condition of having to pay student fees and getting the student fees distributed among all the groups, actually they did take that second route, which is everybody gets a chunk of the pie. And you can't isolate your contribution to the pie to go keep from going to the Gay and Lesbian Alliance if you're a member of the Fundamentalist Christian Alliance. So that approach is taken under some circumstances, not in particularly this one. An interesting note is in military ceremonies, when you're doing there's a pass and review of the band in front of usually the entire combat forces. And this band marches forth and marches back. And that is from an old Roman rite to appease gods before a battle.
Really?
And you can directly trace it historically to an ancient Roman rite of appeasing gods. And I wonder if complete consistency on our part would demand an abolishment and an end of that practice.
Yeah.
We'll have to think about that one.
You know, that equal time argument reminds me of the Texas and the Chicago school book cover controversy that's recently happened.
Yeah.
You remember that? Well, did y'all ever get a chance to see those school book covers they released in Dallas?
I've been to the website and I've announced the URL where people could go look at them. Yeah.
I would have put some more color in them, but they look kind of nice.
Hey, they did that thing in like a week, as a sudden response to the situation. It was a great thing they did.
Yeah. Sure.
I've heard what I guess is the end of that story, but I haven't heard anything more from Chicago. Is there are there any groups trying to balance the scales a bit by providing free thought book covers in Chicago?
I'm pretty sure the only free thought book covers that have been in the news are the ones from Dallas. But you know, the Hattons in Dallas, John and Shelley Hatton, who have come up with this, they are also circulating them across the country.
Oh yeah?
They're getting into classrooms all over the country.
No, they're a very famous item now.
It's another Darwin fish in the making.
All right. Anyway, hey, it's been great talking to y'all, and if you could put me on hold, I'd love to listen for a while.
I will definitely do that, Joe.
So you get your other callers. Thanks. Y'all have a good day.
Bye-bye, you too.
See you soon.
All right, and let's go on to... Okay, that's how we're doing it? Okay. Ken?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, what can we do for you?
Yeah, you were laughing about the drinking of your own urine.
Yeah.
It sounds it's a treatment or method of treatment for preventing disease.
Uh-huh.
It sounds totally outrageous.
Uh-huh.
And our first instinct would be to laugh at it.
Uh-huh.
But it's really not as outrageous as you might think. All right.
Okay.
There's a book about the subject. It's available from Loom Panics Unlimited of Point Townsend, Washington. It's called Your Own Perfect Medicine. Your Own Perfect Medicine.
Uh-huh. Did you have some this morning?
Well, no, I've never tried it, but it's actually pretty well documented, and I would suggest that you read the book before you make any judgments on the matter. It's a very good book, and it doesn't involve actually drinking. It's more like taking a few drops and putting it under your tongue with an eyedropper. Okay, and it's really a very interesting book, and I would suggest that you read it.
What are the claims, caller? The specific claims that for treatment? Can you give me one example of the claim the book makes?
The author used the treatment very successfully for a very serious life-threatening condition, and you'd have to read the book yourself. I really don't have time to go into it. I'm trying to think of the name of the author, but if I can give you my email address, and if you send me an email, I could send more information to you.
Now, I will take down the name of the book. What is the name of the book?
It's called Your Own Perfect Medicine.
Okay.
It's from you can get it through Loom Panics Unlimited.
Okay.
All right.
Right. Well, it's.
I would just caution people that you can find a book promoting just about anything, and it's awfully easy to make a claim about just about anything. But even one lone guy who mysteriously gets over a life-threatening illness and thinks it's because he put drops of urine under his tongue, is really not proof of anything.
Well,
and statistical tests and some understanding of what the reason might be why. I mean, what is in the urine that's supposed to have this positive effect? I mean, that has a lot more to do with whether it's a good idea or not than just one guy's outrageous claim.
Okay, it's not an outrageous claim. It's pretty well documented. All I can tell you is please read the book before you jump. You're jumping to conclusions without really knowing what you're talking about. I'm just asking you.
One book is not pretty well documented.
It is very well documented.
Any lone moron can write one book.
No, because the book has references. Okay, just go ahead and please read the book before you're being just like the people you criticize. Okay.
No.
You have
standards.
Before you jump to conclusions, you need to look into the evidence. All right, man.
Caller. Yeah. We have standards of evidence. Okay. That's all. That's all we're saying. Okay. And these standards of evidence need to be applied equally to everything.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, all I'm suggesting is that you keep an open mind and look into the subject before you jump to conclusions. All right.
There is no documented evidence.
You're not, but
There
you
is
don't know that. If you don't know that,
no,
you're
no,
just
no,
making an
that-
assertion.
As a matter of fact, I do.
No, you don't know.
Research on this
You
subject.
haven't read the book, so you don't know. You
Okay.
only know what you think you know.
Well, now listen. Listen.
And I'm
Okay,
sorry, do you
touche.
know things?
You're a believer.
Excuse me,
That's all. You
caller,
just
do you?
believe in something different.
Excuse
That's
me,
all.
caller.
No.
Do you know things that you don't think you know?
Well, look, I'm not
All right.
going to make a judgment about.
All right,
Okay.
I'm hanging up on you.
It's just very important. It's just very
You
important
only
for this.
know what
man.
you think you know.
It's very important for this
right.
caller to understand that the universe of medical quackery is so elaborate and so deep that it is trivially easy to just get immersed in this idea that you have to see and expose yourself to every possible concept because, my God, there might be, under this huge pile of dog manure at the very bottom, there might be a grain of something that might have some hint of reality to it.
Yeah.
And the problem is you don't have the time. You don't have
to-
the
to
energy
sift
to
through it,
sift
the whole
through
lot.
every pile of dog manure to find this.
And I'm sure the guy who wrote this book was probably might be a guy who was very sincere and thought, oh, well, I did this and I was sick and now I feel better, so it must be because of this.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean that the
and now
guy...
let's make a point because
Yeah.
I'm sure our caller is foaming at the mouth at home.
Yeah.
Could be true. Hey, what the heck? You know, weirder things have turned out to be
Yeah.
valid.
It's not-
Sure, it could be true. Okay, but one book is not, vast amounts of documentation. One book with references in it.
It's got references,
Unless
though.
you follow up the references and find
It's
out
got-
what those are, doesn't prove anything. And Rohan just got through talking about this whole movement, this whole Deepak Chopra movement, which is linked to Indian mysticism,
Yeah.
which has this ancient, long-standing claim that drinking your own urine is good for
which
you,
has
right?
been thoroughly.
That itself,
What's that?
I don't know what that was. This ancient tradition and the fact that there's this huge spiritual movement of people embracing this ancient nonsense, I think it's nonsense, is itself explanation for why there might be a bunch of books out there claiming
Sure,
this, okay? That doesn't count. What counts is clinical trials, right?
And clinical explanation.
And clinical explanations, okay? It's very moving emotionally for some guy to say, I was dying of a horrible disease, but then I put a few drops of urine under my tongue and I miraculously got better.
But he had references,
there are
Jeff. There were
all
references in
kinds
that
of
book.
There are all kinds of examples of people rejecting, going into remission on cancer for unexplained reasons, right?
Yeah.
The vast majority of which were
reasons.
misdiagnoses to begin with, by the way.
Okay, but in any case, just a thing that happens, and I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to segue now into this thing that was in the latest issue of Skeptical Inquirer. The latest completely nonsensical fad in New Age medicine is contrail sickness. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Contrail sickness. It's this new thing where there's these quacks telling people if you've got mysterious symptoms, and just about any kind of symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Go outside and look up in the sky and see if you can see jet airplane contrails. Because if you can, it might be the mysterious evil poisons in the jet airplane contrails that are making you sick.
Yeah.
Wait
And
a
of
minute.
course,
Wait,
this is...
wait.
Yes, no, I am not making this up. There are people that actually believe this. And of course, these quacks can get a lot of mileage out of this because you go outside and you look up in the sky. What are the odds you're not going to see a jet airplane contrail?
Well,
it's almost all the time. And if you don't see one right away, you see one 15 minutes later and you say, oh, well, that proves it.
You probably breathe in more dangerous toxins when you let out a really good fart.
The
than when you see
idea
it.
that anything could be getting to
When you
you
just
from
see a
a high
plane flying
altitude jet
overhead.
airplane
Now,
contrail.
Look very carefully. The jet airplane contrail notion, if you visit my website,
Whatever.
You got something on there?
you can see an article about the contrails. The issue is much more a government conspiracy than
boy.
it is.
Oh, so it's the contrails from the black helicopters.
It is an elaborate New World Order arranged plot to do basically kinds of certain forms of genetic experimentation on the population. And
Do you think that
They're like crop dusting human beings is the claim?
this is basically
man, what a load of-
so? Is this all just
However-
rooted in this weird kind of psychological
but
thing
my point,
that?
but my point is, if you have 1,000 people
Right.
drinking urine. And of them, one of them thinks he has a terrible disease and then thinks he's over it, right? And he writes a book. That has way more impact on people emotionally than it rationally deserves.
Sure.
Okay?
Like this call.
Those stories, those kinds of stories are very moving emotionally, but we've got to, if we want to be smart about it, we've got to withhold our judgment, get clinical backing for claims like that before we take them seriously. And while we're not taking them seriously, there is no harm, as long as we're willing to follow through and look and see if there's anything really to it. Okay? There is no harm in making fun of things that do not appear to be worth serious consideration.
And what was so bizarre just about that caller was that he was so heated in his defense of this. It's like, why?
I'm sure he's got his own
why is the drinking of urine just that appealing that you have to defend it?
I'm sure this guy
He
has his own
didn't seem to
pet
know.
beliefs.
Didn't seem to know quite enough about it to defend it. The thing that I find important also to tag in there is you cannot run clinical trials on every wacky notion that comes along.
Well,
you have to choose them very carefully.
Well, yeah, it's good.
Well, we did mention it.
And I think it also just...
We can't, but there's this guy out there with his book, right? And all these places that he has referenced in his bibliography, right? If all those people got together, they could run a clinical trial, and then scientists could look at it and say, either if the experimental procedure was valid and the data adds up, then it would no longer be a wacky fringe thing, right? Of course, pseudoscientists are notoriously bad at setting up good experiments.
And it bears mentioning that I think Loom Panics Press is a publishing company that specializes in really interesting kind of fringe books by fringe writers on topics like
immediate prediction.
how to change
Immediate
your identity
prediction.
and hide
Go to Lympatics Press, look at the other titles, and they will all be quack titles. Why don't we move on to another call?
All right, we're going to do that.
Pat on 3.
What ails you, my son?
Pat?
Yes, hi guys.
Hi, what can we do for you?
Holding.
Oh, just wanted to bring up something that I saw on television about the Santa Fe prayers. On Channel 8, when they announced that, because I was very interested in it, they said, it was News 8, by the way, they said that almost everyone in the stand stood up. And then on one of the other channels that I saw, and I'm not sure which one it was, because I was just flashing through and saw the way they did not pan the audience. In other words, they just showed the one little group there, and it made it appear that everyone in the whole audience was standing up.
So what do you think really happened?
I also heard that
the Houston Chronicle kind of slanted
claimed that there was a big
said virtually all of the fans at Santa Fe High School's opening game Friday recited the Lord's Prayer just before kickoff. So clearly, it depends on, I guess, who gets the press release to the news office first.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like
But it's funny. There's a real answer here that would be trivial to have if you had a camera on the crowd. I'm surprised we don't have that.
Yeah.
Okay, Carl. Let me ask you a quick test question.
Okay.
What punishment did God...
Are you a Christian caller?
Negative.
No, I didn't think so. We don't need to test him on his Bible quiz.
Let's test him.
All right, let's give you a Bible quiz question if you don't mind.
What punishment did God say is mandatory for an unruly child? A, none. God is loving and forgiving and does not believe in punishing children. B, mandatory timeouts. C, stoning to death. D, deprivation of privileges, grounding, no dessert.
Well, stoning to death, probably.
Stoning to death is correct.
You are correct, sir.
Deuteronomy 21, TAC 20 through 21, both say that, and they shall say unto the elders of the city that this son is stubborn and rebellious, and he will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard, and the men of the city shall stone him with stones that he die. That was Deuteronomy. And for those of you who have somehow exorcised Leviticus from your pantheon of moral responsibility, it is also in Mark. For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother, and whoso curseth father and mother, let him die the death. The death.
Is that Jesus Christ saying that?
I would not know.
Because Jesus also says, if you don't hate your mother and father, you can't be one of my disciples. You can't follow me.
Huh. So, wow, wouldn't that be just
those wacky Bible contradictions?
That'd be the only contradiction in the Bible, wouldn't it?
Thanks for your call.
Well, yes.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for calling.
All right, let's go to Brock.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I was just wanting to make a comment on, I don't know, something about drinking your own urine.
Okay.
For some reason, that's the popular.
Are you in favor or against?
Definitely against.
Okay.
But what
And we don't hold that against you. We just think you're wrong.
what I have heard is if you use your first sample of the morning, I guess, to treat acne or...
Okay, all right, look, before you go on. There is no foundation for any urination claims whatsoever.
Are you talking about scientific, or are you talking about pseudoscience?
Oh, well,
if you're just telling us what people say about it, go right ahead.
Yeah.
It's just hearsay. I've never practiced it, but it's just hearsay what I've heard.
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And another thing is, you're talking about Santa Fe, New Mexico, correct?
No, Santa Fe, Texas, south of Houston.
I don't understand what the big spiff is about 15 to 30 seconds of a prayer during a game.
Well, it depends. What the big spiff? The big spiff is
the U.S. Constitution is a little spiff.
The Constitution of the United States of America does not allow the government to express an opinion or support any particular opinions about religion. Okay.
Okay.
The government has to stay neutral. And what they tried to do originally in Santa Fe, Texas, is they tried to use the authority of the school to make an official prayer happen at the football games.
Have they made it
government-sponsored prayer? And the Supreme Court wisely shot this down. Now what's going on is that the Christians, stamping their little feet because they couldn't have their way, there's been a organization started called No Pray, No Play, where they're trying to organize spontaneous prayers, which is legal as long as they don't try to take over the authority of the school to do this.
But if the students don't pray, then they don't play.
No. It's really what the no play means.
That's an unfortunate name. Even the own group does not claim that they're going to refuse to participate in the sports unless they get their way. I don't know why they called themselves that, because that's the clear implication, but they say that's not what they're about.
It's just it sounds catchy.
Okay, caller, are you ready for your test question?
Sure.
What did Jesus say happens? What did Jesus say happens to those who have premarital sex? A, nothing. While the Lord does not condone this, he doesn't punish people for doing it. B, frequent performers are struck with venereal disease.
Ow.
C, they cannot enter heaven, so they must wind up in hell. D, they have difficulty coping in loving relationships.
I think it's E. If you repent your sins, then you'll be saved through his word.
But if you didn't repent.
No, that's the point. You're not repenting.
That's the point. No, I'm sorry. You don't get to play the. You don't get to play the. If you decide to believe the religion and do what the religion says, right, and repent according to the way that they want you to do it in the church, and let the church have authority over you, then you get to go to heaven. You don't get to get out of the implication of Jesus saying that. Which one is it?
You're
C.
saying what the church says?
No. What does Jesus say?
Why don't you read the quote?
Right.
The quote from Jesus.
I believe what I said is
1
correct.
Corinthians 6, chapters 9 to 10.
Very well.
Verses 9 to
The
10.
answer to the question, and caller, I'm afraid I'm going to have to mark you down as a wrong answer, not understanding what Jesus said.
You don't get the
But
chance
the
to
answer is C, that they cannot enter heaven and so must wind up in hell. And the quote is, "Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God?" ? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor the effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor the covetous, nor drunkards, nor revelers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God. That is 1 Corinthians 6:9, tack 10.
It's a parable.
No. That's not a parable.
No, sorry.
No, that is not a parable.
The parable starts with Jesus saying, "Be not deceived."
No, a parable is not. That is not a parable, caller. You're sadly mistaken. I know exactly what you mean, and it's not a parable. But thank you for your playing the game of what did Jesus say.
Okay, thanks for your call.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
I was amazed, and we read that one last week too. I was amazed that effeminate people can't get into heaven.
What is it?
Does that mean
we read that last week. The caller last week also tried to play the God's forgiveness card. No, I'm sorry.
Which completely begs the question.
If the rule is, if the thing that you're going to be burned in hell forever for is not bad enough to deserve that punishment in the first place, the fact that you can ignore you can evade the punishment by kowtowing to the religion, right, and doing what you're doing your asking for forgiveness and believing that all this crap is true, right? The fact that you're supposed to be able to get out of it that way doesn't count, right? Yeah. If I say, I will blow your brains out if you don't give me $5, right?
And you don't give him $5.
And you say, but all you had to do was give him $5, right? That does not mean that it was okay for me to threaten you with that in the first place, just because there's an easy way out.
Precisely.
Okay? It's absolutely despicable.
Yeah.
And
so it's an abdication of moral responsibility.
Let's move on. Who's next?
I wonder what the Yiddish word for effeminate is. What's Hebrew for effeminate?
Hey guys.
Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
What's up, man?
What's going on?
Steve, does the Dead Sea Scrolls have the word effeminate in it?
Yeah.
Do you know?
No, I don't know.
We can talk about that passage in just a moment, but I wanted to respond to a passage that we talked about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
It was 2 Kings 2.
Okay.
23 through 24.
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
That's where.
That is the bears sent to kill the children that made fun of Elijah's bald head.
I'll just read it for everybody. And he went up from thence unto Bethel, and said, as he was going up by the way, there came forth little children out of the city, and mocked him. And he said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. And he turned back and looked on them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. He cursed the children in the name of the Lord. And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 42 children of them.
Okay, so you have an explanation for this? This ought to be good.
This is going to be good, guys. Let me tell you, first off, you guys take the scriptures, you just don't understand them.
Whoa, Steve.
No, let him make his case.
Lay it on me.
All right.
Go ahead, Steve.
All right,
I want to go ahead and tell you the answer. The word tear in Hebrew text is
means
maul.
lick with friendly...
What?
Listen very carefully.
Yes,
the word tear, T-A-R-E,
yes, sir.
in Hebrew text is the word maul, M-A-U-L. That is not killed.
All right.
Okay, that's mauled or bitten or scratched.
All right.
Okay.
So, let me finish.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right.
Now, when they made the translation into English, they used the word children for the Hebrew word nar, N-A-A-R.
Which means?
Which actually means in Hebrew youth.
Okay.
Young adults.
Okay.
Okay, so they're not children.
Okay.
Okay, now, these youth, and actually in that time, the youth were actually, men that were grown to anger, or young adults that were grown to anger. They chased this prophet down to mock him. And they were so intent on showing their hatred toward this man, they followed him out into the wilderness. Okay?
Okay.
Now, they would have eventually injured or killed this man of God, which was Elijah. Okay?
And you know this how?
I'm sorry?
And you know that how?
That's based on the way that the ancient Israel custom is.
I'm sorry, the custom among the ancient Israelites was to chase prophets into the wilderness and kill them?
I don't want to say they're custom, but in this
you just did say they're custom. All right, so let's revisit this passage now, okay? So instead what we got is these, we now have...
Hey, it's my job to read
now have young men, grown young men, making fun of a prophet, and so the prophet curses them in the name of God, and bears come out and maul them. How is that better?
Because they had the intent to injure or kill this man of God.
Which you are claiming, just pulling that out of your behind,
no,
Steve.
I'm not.
You have no evidence whatsoever what those guys were up to.
Guys, I got this from a biblical scholar named David Ralston. You can feel free
what do you think a biblical scholar would tell you, Steve?
Because
it's the job of biblical scholars. It is the job of biblical scholars, at least Christian biblical scholars, not the actual academic biblical scholars who you people won't listen to, okay? Because they tell you things like, oh, it's obvious where the Bible all came from historically. But believer biblical scholars, it's their job to come up with excuses to justify the horrendous evil crud that's in your holy book. Okay? That is their job. Of course that's what that guy would tell you. There is no evidence whatsoever that there was anything going on here except that some people were making fun of this guy for being bald.
And look, besides...
And your God's answer to that... Your God's answer to that...
If they
Steve,
chased you down,
Steve,
and
your
they
God's
actually
answer to that...
started taunting, and they had the intent on killing you.
It says little children.
You are
it says
pulling
little
that
children.
intent... You are he's
Is
claiming... I'm going to give him the reinterpretation of those words because that doesn't matter.
I want little.
Making
I want
it
little.
Making it adults instead of little children makes no difference. Okay,
Yeah.
Making them mauled instead of killed makes no difference.
That's
it's
fine.
still absolutely reprehensible. And your the meat of your claim
you guys have a
is
hard time.
the meat of your claim is you are asserting an intent on the part of these characters where no intent is given. You are just pulling that out of thin air to justify this hideous story about your God
Wait.
mauling people with bears
let me give
or
the
making
caller.
fun of people
Let
for
me give
being bald.
Let me give the caller a little
You guys
credit.
have a hard time accepting accountability and being punished for things that you do wrong.
Wait, it's
That's
Okay.
why you reject
What is
me for.
Steve? What is the proper punishment for making fun of somebody for being bald?
You don't know that they were just making fun of him, Jeff. They could have actually been.
Okay, then why is that important fact?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why is that important fact omitted?
Here's the thing. Once again, I have to reiterate, where in that scripture does it indicate clearly that it was the intent of the children or youths who were ridiculing Elijah to kill him?
Guys, you have to infer because it's not.
No, as a matter of fact,
Why would you think?
As a matter of fact, we don't have to infer. Why should we?
Jeff,
Why should
you're
we
walking
bend
down the
over
street.
backwards? Excuse me, Steve.
You're walking
Why
down
should
the
we bend
street.
over backwards to find excuses for apparently hideously unjust actions by your God in His holy book? Why should we? Why do we have to look for
let me tell the caller how he can.
You may have to because you believe this nonsense.
Let me tell the caller how he can help himself. Caller, there are other important words. You've done the right thing in the sense by trying to go to this translation mode, and I don't object to that, right? I don't think the Bible's been well translated myself. But there's another word. There's the word little. There's the word mocked. For example, in this passage, it says they mocked him. Now, mocked does not mean threatened. So you would actually have to go back and check that word for me and come up with something that means threatened. So in fact, the passage does say what these little youths were doing, but it doesn't say the thing that's relevant to their punishment, which kind of indicates that, well, something's missing from here, and yet a book that was not divinely inspired might have this kind of mistake.
Look, guys.
But a divinely inspired book, I would be hard-pressed to find it.
They chased the guy down. They followed him to the wilderness.
And mocked him.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
And what is the proper punishment for mocking somebody who's bald?
We don't know that they just mocked him is what I'm trying to say.
But you don't know more than that. That is precisely what your holy book says.
Yeah, we don't know also that they were young adult men trying to kill him.
Steve,
we do know
you are the guy who doesn't understand your Bible.
You're
it's
wrong.
Not us. You are the guy who doesn't understand it.
You're wrong.
They were girls.
No, they weren't girls.
By the way, Steve, how are those Bigfoots doing? Do you
we
believe in
discussed that
Bigfoot
last
yet?
time, and I said I didn't have any information.
How about those fundamentalists carving human footprints into the limestone next to dinosaur footprints?
How about
have you admitted to yourself yet that your creationist leaders have lied to you through their teeth?
How about, Jeff, those
excuse me, may I have an answer, please?
Who have gone down there
Excuse
and
me,
actually
may I have an
destroyed
answer,
some
please?
of those human footprints.
Where is your evidence for that? You've never come up with a scrap
you
of
give
it.
me a fax
Whereas
number and I'll
we
send
have
it to you, Jeff.
we have documented proof
I've got
that your
documented proof, too.
creationist leaders have lied to you over and over and over again. Have you admitted that to yourself
I've got
yet?
documented proof that I can send you to. You just give me your fax number and I'll load you up with it. Now let's go on the other passage. 1 Corinthians 6:9.
No, excuse me. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Even the creationist mainstream won't have anything to do with the Biloxi River.
How about the fake credentials of your creationist leaders? Have you admitted to yourself yet that they are a bunch of liars when they say that they have PhDs? How about that?
Well, I heard you guys talk about that before. And just because someone doesn't have a PhD in biology doesn't discredit them to be an authority on a subject.
You're right. But if they have a fake
if they have a fake
made up PhD from a diploma mill. Wait a minute. If these guys sent like $20 to a diploma mill so they could get a piece of paper, and then we have documented proof that they have documented proof that these guys have wave around fake IDs. You're right. Not having a real PhD doesn't mean you have no idea what you're talking about. But waving around a fake PhD does prove that you are a liar.
Give me the information.
Liar! They are liars, Steve, and you are following these morons. What?
You make allegations, but you don't back it up with any facts.
Hand me my bag.
Now, while you're looking for that,
I will read it to you.
Let me talk to you about another issue.
No, we're going to stay on one issue. I thought we explained this to you last time. You do not get to play hit and run creationism, where you dispute everything we say and then move on to another point before we can provide the response.
Just give me a chance to get my next issue in.
No. As a matter of fact, no, you will not have a chance to move on to a second issue and get off of this one before you are forced to confront the evidence.
Give me an opportunity to give you my second issue.
Here we go. Questionable creationist credentials. Thomas Barnes.
Questionable.
May I read you the thing? Thomas Barnes has a legitimate MS degree in physics from Brown University. However, his degree from Hardin-Simmons University, a Christian school, and his undergraduate alma mater is merely honorary. Yet he quotes it as evidence that he has a PhD in a different field. Karl Baugh. I read that whole one to you last time. In the interest of time, I'm not going to repeat it.
That's fine.
Heard it already.
Where's the proof?
Okay. There are 4 books referred to in this document. There is.
Well, no, tell me about Dr. Karl Baugh. Show me the fake proof that he has a fake credential.
Well,
I'll show you the real proof that he has a fake credential.
It's really easy to check.
All right.
It's really easy to check degree credentials. It's very
Karl
simple.
Baugh is a Baptist minister who claims to be an archaeologist with a PhD from the California Graduate School of Theology in Los Angeles. This school is unaccredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, the primary body responsible for college and universal accreditation in the region. It is also unaccredited by the state of California. Baugh has also claimed PhD degrees in education and anthropology from Pacific College of Graduate Studies in Melbourne, Australia.
Right.
And the College of Advanced Education in Irving, Texas. According to Glenn Kuban, who has thoroughly researched Baugh's Biloxi man-tract claims and his credentials, neither Pacific College nor the College of Advanced Education is accredited or authorized by any regional or national body to grant degrees.
National.
Pacific College is a small religious school run by Australian creationist Clifford Wilson, a close associate of Baugh's. The College of Advanced Education is a division of the International Baptist College, of which Baugh himself is president.
Yeah, the important point here is that
these are made-up degrees from little Christian schools that have no authority to claim to be able to give people PhDs.
They didn't have a mail-in fake credential.
No.
You answered your own question.
What?
No.
What? I'm sorry.
No,
what is
it's
your,
very,
what is
it's,
your claim?
it's very important that you understand.
He understands. This guy is getting a PhD.
But the point that's important is the nature of accreditation. That is if you're going to claim that a person that's involved in the mainstream understanding of the science of the matter, in this case biology or geology, is actually now leaning toward creationism, that person cannot be counted among the mainstream experts unless they come from an accredited institution.
That's just the nationally.
Key point. This isn't Australia. Or regionally. I read nationally, and then I read the state of California. How regional does it have to be? Like, Steve, how regional does it have to be? The state of California hasn't accredited them.
Yeah, the state of Missouri did accredit Karl Baugh's PhD degree from that school in California.
But the state of what? They can't do that. They have no authority.
Because
The
it's
state
not
of
accredited in every single state in the union doesn't mean that he's not. He can't be an authority
in the
on the
state
subject
in
he's
which the
talking
school
about.
is. In the state in which the school is.
It's a degree mill. You just
It's a
have to
degree
face the
mill.
fact that it's a degree
It's not
mill.
a degree mill, guys. He didn't send off $15 and get some degree.
No, in fact,
No, he gave it to his friend.
In fact, he gave it to his friend in Australia, and in the case of the College of Advanced
I mean, if-
Education,
if
it's his
that's all
own
you
freaking
guys
college that
got-
he made up.
These are people who sit around
They are-
at a table
they
and
are
talk to each
lying.
other and hand each other degrees and credentials. That's what's going on here.
Hey,
what
just
you think is
and
going on.
besides-
I,
Oh, no, no.
I have gotten
Just prove
emails,
that
and
it's not.
I'll bring these in. I have gotten emails, okay, junk email from Christian schools wanting to sell me degrees. Okay, I have received these
Hey, Jeff.
because I've posted on Alt Atheism,
Hey, Jeff.
and it gotten cross-posted to various Christian news groups, and so these
Got
Christian
spammed.
schools got hold of
Jeff.
my email address and spammed me, offering to sell me degrees for $20.
Jeff.
Taking him up on one.
Well, what do you have to say about Dr. Walt Brown?
He has a degree. We have to say about him exactly what we told you about him last week, which is that his degree doesn't apply to the field in which he is now
Oh, that's right.
claiming to be an expert.
which is a very
And
common
I've let
pseudoscience
you go,
trait.
Steve, in order that we may have some more callers in the last few minutes.
But thanks for calling, Steve.
Yeah, and don't ever call back here and ask us the same frickin' questions again. You know what we said about that guy last week, and you're just playing creationist tactics, hit and run, ask a question, and then move on to another subject before you get the response, and ask the same frickin' question again the next week, 2 weeks later, when we've already given you the answer. If you can't accept this information into your brain, if you can't hear
See the obvious.
you can't see the obvious and go, okay, it's true. These guys who have been telling me all this creationist stuff have made up degrees. If you can't accept that and you have to keep asking us the same question over and over and over again, you are a moron. Now, let's go on to Gilbert.
Yes.
Hi, Gilbert.
You're not a
How you
moron,
doing?
are you, Gilbert?
Well, we don't know what you are, Gilbert. What can we do for you?
Well, I tell you what, I want to make a comment. I was trying to get on your show since last week. And
Yeah, sorry about that.
accidentally
We're
got cut
awfully
off.
busy sometimes.
But the thing is, you know, you're hearing about prayer at the football games and this type of thing. Well, what I see happening with that, if you're praying at football games, then what's going to happen? Everybody's going to bitch and raise hell. That if you're going to have it at one function, you may as well have it at all functions, and I feel that that's forcing people to pray that may not want to pray. And another thing that I think the newspaper's doing wrong, talking about Austin American Statesman here, the no pray, no play. Well, I think that's unfair to the student or whatever, and, you know, I think
But what's unfair to the students?
that if he doesn't pray, he doesn't get to play.
No,
Okay,
that's
no, wait.
not.
We have twice
Wow.
now. This is the second time we've had to be apologists for that organization. It is a very unfortunate name they've picked for themselves, but they say that they have no intention of telling any children to refuse to participate in the sports event if they don't get to say their
They would
prayers.
get sued over
Okay, that they say that that's not what they mean, and as far as I know, they're honest about that.
Yeah, and there's really no way of even fathoming what they did mean. It's mind-boggling that they chose a name like that.
They were looking for a peppy name.
Yeah, they're looking for something that.
So
And so they chose to name one.
And here I'm gonna have to be apologist for them again. Even if there are public prayers at all social events, okay, at all public events, that doesn't force anybody else to pray. That's true. Okay, and the ACLU has come out in support of this no play, no pray group as long as they are a private group doing their own thing in their own time, and they just happen to pick the bleachers at a high school football game to stand up and say their prayer out loud.
And no
There is
special
nothing-
concessions are made.
As long as no special concessions are made for the sake of their religion by the government or by any government-funded body, then it's perfectly okay. It's rude. Okay, it's rude because it's peer pressure attempting to bully people into going along with their religion. That I would agree with, but it's not illegal.
Well, I think religion should be a private matter, and I don't think anybody, regardless of what gender you are or this, should be forced to do anything.
We agree.
Okay.
And
All
it
right.
seems like
Hallelujah. God bless you.
And also, cute-looking John. I'm surprised y'all don't have him on. Boy, I saw him last weekend. He's a hot number.
John Coons?
Yes.
Are you hitting on our own John Coons?
Yes, I am.
All right, well, we'll pass that on to him.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sure
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Well, John has a
Whoa! We got a few more minutes left. Let's go.
We need more callers for the Bible quiz.
Right. Bible quiz.
Virginia,
Hi.
is there a Santa Claus?
No, actually, there's not.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, that was a funny call.
Hey,
Anyway.
Virginia, what did Jesus do to those who failed to sell all their
We're
possessions?
short on time. We're down to 5
That's
minutes.
okay. I just had to say
is
a
our
couple
own
things. Wouldn't it be really something if Steve had 2 or 3 brain cells that all of a sudden collided together, and he came to the realization that he's been fed a bunch of lies? And just imagine how he's going to feel when if he does come to that realization that he's just so heavily indoctrinated. It's like he's been brainwashed.
It's going to be tough for him.
I know, and you know, I'm glad that we're going to be here to help out when that happens, because I think it's inevitable. I think it's going to eventually happen.
Well, it's not inevitable, because a lot of his negative emotional reaction to what we're saying is, I think, comes from a understandable concern on his part. He does not want to find out that everything he believes is a pack of lies.
It seems to me that he does want to find out, because for the very fact that he's watching the show and he's doing everything that he can possibly do to debunk what you're saying to him, and eventually he's going to run out of arguments.
Well, no, because he'll just keep recycling the same.
Well,
that is his pattern so far. He just asks us the same questions over and over again.
Anyway,
I don't see any evidence he's learned anything.
Yeah, I know. The only other thing I just wanted to say real quick is for those out there who want to know more about the urine drinking thing, you can go to Skeptic's Dictionary, Skeptic's Dictionary online
website,
and read all about it. It's skeptic.com, SKEPDIC.com.
Right.
To probably have
And look under U for urine, and you'll find all kinds of stuff to debunk the urine thing. So that's all I had, guys,
right
saying.
there amongst our mini atheist.
That would be the fourth one from the top.
Yeah.
Skeptic.com.
All right.
There it is.
And,
all right.
And these are other good sites. Right. But you have to just remember what Christianity is selling. This is a religion that particularly among the people who follow it with a fundamentalist level of fanaticism and dogmatism, that tells its followers, there's a creator to the universe. He's your best friend. He made all this for you. Okay? Now that's a very ego-gratifying belief system to get absorbed in, and for the people who take it to that degree of extremism, okay, they have to defend it with that degree of volatility, because otherwise, for it to be denied to them would be almost like a denial of their own selves.
What's a real shame is that there are many really credentialed, very intelligent, very contributing members of society who are Christians, who are scientists, who are experts, who do have a lot of interesting things, miss a little bit on the wrong side, but there's certainly interesting things to say that this guy could rally behind with some sense of personal dignity left after it was all over.
Right.
But he's chosen not to. In fact, one of the guys was mentioned last week, Josephson, and there's other Nobel Prize winners.
We didn't get to those other names.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick background on those other two names, Josephson and
certainly,
and Candice Pert?
Well, Candice Pert was a significant researcher in neurobiology.
Thanks, Jenny.
And she eventually had some kind of spiritual personal experience that slowly drove her out of mainstream research, and she started pursuing just the wackier lines on the nature of emotions and how emotions interact with our physical well-being. And she came up with lots of sort of kookball theories, but her real research was absolutely legitimate, and it was very excellent discoveries on how neuroreceptors work.
We had a
brain.
caller who told us about that in her background, and the point I raised was that if you are a person who has a PhD for legitimate research, but then you stop believing the things that you believed when you got the things you were taught when you got your PhD, right, and start going off on a tangent, you can't use the PhD as evidence that what you're saying now necessarily means anything.
Well, that's certainly true, but what she definitely did do is, that doesn't make her contribution any less, but it does make the fact that everything she says now still has to go through the same scrutiny of what she did before.
What about Brian Josephson?
Brian Josephson is a very significant Nobel Prize winner. He basically provided us with the transistor, and that was a absolutely culturally revolutionary device. He is a believer in God, and there's really not much more to say about that.
Okay. All right. I guess just goes to show that understanding transistors is not does not provide evidence of God's non-existence, but then nobody ever said it was. Okay. Lecture today at First Cafeteria. Christians, Buddhists, New Agers, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong.